So welcome to our session on the G20. We're really pleased that on day 3 of the summit, we're able to now provide an update on some of the activities that took place on the G20. This session is called From Policy to Practice, Advancing the G20 Vision for Inclusive, Interoperable, and Value-Driven Digital Public Infrastructure. So for those of you that have been following the G20 under the South African presidency, there were 4 priority focus areas, and one of the key priority focus areas was on digital public infrastructure. So this is a session to give you an update on some of the outcomes. And myself, as ITU, my name is Alex Wong, in the Office of the Secretary General, where I led the ITU's work on the DPI pillar, together with UNDP, our co-knowledge partner on that pillar, as well as Research ICT Africa, and actually a few others. There was a really great team effort supporting the presidency on the outcomes of this track. So without further delay, I'm going to invite the Director General of the Digital Communications and Digital Transformation Ministry, Nonkobelo Jordan, to open the session with a few opening remarks.
Good morning, good morning. I didn't know that Alex is taller than I am. And welcome to South Africa. It's been an interesting year. I think this premise is obviously one of those historical sites by now in terms of decision making. This is where we held our digital economy working group, the ministerial segment, as well as our AI program. So thank you very much to Alex and all our partners for then creating this platform in terms of to discuss the outcomes of the G20 Digital Economy Working Group, particularly on the digital public infrastructure as a key element for digital transformation and for their contributions to this work. I think Alex touched on the issue that there were so many of our knowledge partners who've held this road with us. I was just talking to my sister Dion last night to then say, I can't believe that in terms of South Africa's decision, it's been less than a year. On the 4th of December, it's literally going to be a year since we took that conscious decision to say, we want to participate in this digital public infrastructure. And a lot has happened in a span of 10 months, 11 months since then. So the timing of this for us is perfect. And I mean, even the hosting of this in South Africa, I think the decision took place in terms of the interest of what South Africa is doing with regards to this. A lot has happened, and much of it is in terms of the contribution that we got from our knowledge partners, and many of them you're going to hear in as far as the roadmap. I just want the couple of takeaways that came out of our engagement at G20 under then obviously South Africa's presidency. And we are hoping that obviously all of this is going to feed into the G20 summit, which will be taking place later on this month. So one of those obviously is that one of the key lessons is in the implementation of the DPI, especially for developing countries and in Africa, is for us to ensure that we avoid the long roads that have been there, and also to maximize in terms of the benefit as well as the opportunities, and managing the risk. I think those are quickly coming out now. One of the two issues with regards to then the work that was done by our knowledge partners is then the DPI Public Value Management Framework. I think Prof. Dave Eves have spoken a lot about that, and I'm hoping that you will get to hear more coming out from here. Prof. Gilward, I see Alison is here, picking up on the previous G20 as well as T20 work, and then focusing in terms of some of the critical governance issues, as well as then to advance the agenda in terms of the guidelines for the integrated governance of DPI. I think as policymakers, we dream in terms of the potential of the DPI, to enhance essential services for everyone. Our focus is always a citizen-centric and making sure that obviously there necessarily safeguards for that. But the intent is to really improve the efficiency in terms of the public services or the services that we offer to our citizens within a central point for them. And to also at the same time increase the issues of the local economic participation. I love the idea that this DPI has this platform for innovation, especially for our SMMEs as well as the youth who are always creative in this space. And that was one of the priorities, as Alex talked about, with regards to the innovation that is then pushed by the medium, small enterprises for us. And then obviously the issues related to the interoperability of it and integration as well as data sharing across sectors whilst increasing the competition and reducing the vendor dependencies. However, this system will then require a set of governance tools to ensure that it upholds primarily, I think for us, was the human rights and people's rights. And I think in the case of South Africa, obviously premised within our constitution, it also ensures the rights to privacy as well as transparency, but also inclusion. I think inclusion, the way we had the issue with regards to the women, obviously always vulnerable, the youth, the children, but also people with disability. And so there's much focus and work with regards to that. I'm happy that also, as we're looking at this DPI program, we looked at the alignment to it in terms of the World Summit on Information Society as we commemorate, obviously, the 20-year anniversary, and I'm looking forward to that. And I think the focus, again, was about equality, rights issues, as well as greater inclusion. So the two sets of documents, and I'm hoping that the panel is actually going to unpack, they're the knowledge experts, after all. For us, as I said, this is now our produce, and we're hoping that under the G20 presidency in South Africa, many other countries will then be able to take pieces of it and basically also integrate it as they roll out their DPIs within their various jurisdictions as well. So I don't want to prolong the discussion, but just to thank you all. And I want to thank, once again, I think for me and on behalf of the department and the government of South Africa, truly our knowledge partners and partners who have really worked this journey with us, the outcome of which is something that will be a lasting legacy. I'm looking forward to 12 months in action, producing some form of an outcome to say where are we with regards to the steps. The Gates Foundation has really been instrumental in many facets in terms of driving and helping us along with, as I said, all our knowledge partners, the UNDP, the ITU, and others. So moving forward, I'm hoping that this collaboration, both with the international knowledge partners, ITU and UNDP, as well as other international organizations, is also going to be beneficial to others as well. I think that the Digital Impact Alliance, the co-developers, the Gates Foundation, amongst others, it has been truly invaluable for us as South Africa, and I'm hoping that it's truly also going to be truly instrumental, and I'm looking forward to the ongoing partnership going forward. So ladies and gentlemen, as then the outgoing chair of the Digital Economy Working Group under the G20, I promise you that very interesting as well as fulfilling engagement with our panel that will be coming up now. And our challenge is time. There's just not enough time, and we're trying to catch up on the race, and I'm hoping that we would therefore share more insights in terms of how we can spiral forward. Thank you very much.
So we're going to spend the next 50 minutes in 2 mini panels to cover the key outcomes of the DPI priority area. The first mini panel, we're going to talk about and share the outcomes on the frameworks for public value and governance, and I'll be chairing that with my three colleagues, if they can join the stage, Allison, Dion, and David. And then after this first mini panel, we're going to have a second mini panel that my colleague Raja from UNDP will chair, which will be to share the second part of our DPI outcome, which was tied to showing case studies from countries. So yes, let's begin. Great. So I think the themes that DG Nakubela outlined that drove the entire overall G20 South African presidency, and including this work, are the themes that we've been hearing all along during the last couple days here about inclusion, about security, making sure everyone can benefit. And so in that regard, under the priority, one of the key first outcomes was to look at how do we make sure that what we are doing with DPI ultimately creates public value. And we had the pleasure of David and his team from UCL to really be one of our other knowledge partners, because many were involved, to work on this particular, what we call the public value measurement framework. When you eventually can look at the website of the G20, it's Annex A under this priority. But David, I'm going to pass the floor to you and let you describe what you did with this framework. I actually do have a specific question for you. You've been advising the South African government on the My Mzansi initiative, while also engaging G20 member states through the development of the public value measurement framework. This framework represents a major shift from traditional efficiency and cost-benefit metrics to a broader understanding of DPI's societal and economic contributions. Could you explain why this shift matters for governments, and what practical advice you would offer to those now looking to apply this framework in implementation?
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here and to be here with my fellow panelists. One of the challenges we have that actually is not exclusive to just digital infrastructure, but infrastructure in general, is very often when ministries of finance and others want to finance these things, what they're looking for is a cost-benefit analysis. Like, if I do this, what's the benefit I'm going to do? And they need to find some measurable and ideally very large benefit. So they're looking for some big reason. So, you know, if you're going to build a port, you know, it's like, oh, there's a mine nearby. That mine is going to export $50 billion worth of minerals in the next 10 years. Yeah, we got to have a port. Otherwise, we can't export this and make any of the money. Let's get the money to build the port. The challenge with infrastructure is it often ends up benefiting a whole number of people, and it becomes actually a core economic input that lowers transaction costs, enables lots of people to benefit. And one of the challenges I think we're going to face with digital infrastructure is that we may end up building things that have actually small amounts of benefits for the whole population, lots of different parts of the whole population, so lots of small little benefits that in aggregate become very significant. And those benefits may be fiscal, they may be economic, they may be efficiency, they may be social. And right now our whole frame for thinking about infrastructure is really trapped in a cost-benefit analysis world where we have to find the big use case that's going to pay for it all. And so we need a framework that's broader and more diverse and is thinking about a bigger set of benefits, and how are we going to engage with those and measure them to persuade the ministries of finance to pay for this and to drive this. And then I think equally important, we need to be thinking creatively about those different inputs so that we go and measure them to find out if what we're building is actually serving the people that we said we were going to go serve.
All right, thank you, David. So I think David's had sessions and discussions already a bit more on the framework, so hopefully you've seen some of those, but also wait until the final publications come out, and also, of course, David's here for further discussion. The second key outcome of the priority area, which is Annex B, is the integrated governance framework. We really built this framework based on a lot of the work that had already taken place under the Indian and Brazilian presidencies. And building on top of that, we added a few elements to really focus on what we felt and what the G20 South African presidency felt were the priorities. And so with that, together with UNDP, Research ICT Africa, we were the partners behind this, working with the presidency. I'm going to invite Allison to explain and share a few words on the framework.
Thank you so much, Alex. And very nicely set up by David, so I don't have to go very much into the really different approach to the integrated governance framework in the context of shifting some of the framing from a quite narrow cost-benefit analysis, efficiency and productivity gains, which are obviously critical, as David's explained, but really shifting the allocation of resources, the valuation of these projects to a public value framing. And in order to get these potentially positive social value outcomes that David's spoken about, it doesn't happen on its own. It requires enormous amounts of governance to get the integration that we need between these infrastructures. And of course, very importantly, extending on the earlier work that's been done, the framing of this was not only a whole of government. This isn't only e-government plus. This is actually a whole of society program. If we're actually wanting SMMEs to be visible to the state, to get benefits from the state, to be able to be involved in procurement systems, we not only need a compliance data protection framework, for example, we actually need a data governance framework that will enable people to participate in the system, that will give them opportunities to access data in order to create startups and entrepreneurial activities and those kinds of things. So all of these things really require this integrated framework that we need. And importantly, the governance framework was the sort of issue that came out of the DPI initiative from India. Everything was done, the technology, great excitement about that, and the governance framework was handed over to Brazil. Brazil picked that up, a strong focus on data and on data justice, but the actual integrated framework came to South Africa. So this was an important legacy item for these progressive digital agenda of the emerging economies, and that's why it kind of is this encompassing. So very much concerned with not only just DPI, technical transformation, efficiency, but concerned with equitable, just transformative DPI. What do we need to do to actually make it transformative to reach those public outcomes? So efficiency and productivity, absolutely critical, as we said, but also it's in this public value framework, fiscal resilience, public service, economic development, competition and innovation, the incredible institutional integration that you need, so institutional regulatory environment that you need. We need information regulators working together with competition regulators, etc., because it's whole of society. We need to look at both these obvious positive spillovers, but also negative spillovers, and how those are going to be dealt with early on, not trying to deal with them when you've got everything in place. And the data governance framework itself, and I will finish off quickly, Alex, because I know we're short of time, but the data governance framework has essentially these three legs, and some of them have been in a lot of the literature, a lot of the previous G20 work and the Global Digital Compact, but I think there is a contribution that goes further. So the one is obviously the critical one, the technical standards, the interoperability that you need between the infrastructures, because of this incredible public good data that is reusable, that you can create value without, that you can use without diminishing the value of somebody else using it. And that's really what creates the value through these different infrastructures. And then very importantly, the safeguards framework, so the rights and harms framework. And there, of course, we drew very strongly on the work that UNDP has been doing, with the latest work also by the UNDP and the Office for the Digital Enhanced Technologies, formerly the Tech Envoy's Office. A very important document. But, and that looks at issues of exclusion and the harms associated not only with privacy breaches and that sort of thing, but from being excluded. But perhaps where it doesn't go, which the African Union Data Policy Framework does, is actually locating data governance in the broader economy and looking at the kind of economic regulation you need in order to ensure equitable participation, to ensure that you are creating opportunities across this very exciting ecosystem to meet citizens' needs, but also to draw in firms, draw in local private value creation as you're building the public value framework for the whole of society. And perhaps if I can, just on a quick last note, I know I said the last one was the last note, but I don't think I'm going to get another chance, to just say there have been some very positive spillover, legacy projects coming from this, because this was an African G20, the first and the last for a long time. The African Union, obviously, the second G20 meeting that was an organizational member, very active in various groups, and took on a lot of leadership. And one of them was on data governance, particularly in the AI framework, but also in relation to DPI. And African Development Bank was also an organizational member, or an organization invited to participate in this G20. And on the African Development Bank's initiative, together with a collaboration with the AU, but also with Co-Develop, has now funding a big Africa-wide project on DPI, and particularly political economy framework that they can use in order to better understand the context for their investments in countries. It's a very big digital transformation grant that the bank has. So we're very excited about that. I think it raises opportunities that were discussed in this for Pan-African in this case, but regional complementarity and harmonization in order to be able to reach some of these enormous challenges that we have.
Thank you, Alison. We all love the framework, by the way. And actually, as a UN organization, for us, it really provides a framing for how we talk about DPI and covering these various pillars. And I think many of the sessions in the last couple of days have been covering specific topics within the framework. So hopefully the big picture here of what came out of the presidency is helpful for you as you take your work forward. The final speaker on this panel, Dion from Gates Foundation. AI, meanwhile, has been a theme throughout the entire G20, not just in the Digital Economy Working Group, but also in the leaders track. And there's been a lot of discussions on what is the impact of AI also on DPI. So Dion, you've been quite involved. The Gates Foundation has been quite involved with supporting the presidency and some of the thinking on the AI agenda. Can you share your reflections and observations on the South African G20 presidency in the context of DPI and AI?
Thank you, Alex. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you for inviting me to join, and thank you. It's an honor and privilege to be here with the other panelists. Some people think about, like, how is the Gates Foundation, how does this tie into the G20? You know, the reflections on the South African presidency is that it's a historic presidency. The through line from India to Brazil to South Africa being quite a critical one. I'd like to connect the dots between what our co-chair Bill Gates has said about having 1 billion people secure, trusted, and verifiable ID, which can enable digital services and scale those services, and to have those connected to 400 million in sub-Saharan Africa. You're hearing from many of the knowledge partners, so I won't go into detail. Actually, a bit of a dance with Alison and the focus on the AU. So passing the baton from South Africa and then deepening that engagement with the AU. I was just here, it feels like yesterday, but it was like a couple of weeks ago where the AI for Africa convening was held, a historic convening, which connected the DPI AI work from the G20 to the African Union, and thinking about this scale that you mentioned, Alison, and the measurement that you mentioned, David. There's so much work going on. I won't take too much time, but I do want to share reflections from the Gates Foundation and mention what Sanjay mentioned, which is digital public goods built on trust and nation-led. That's most critical. And the UN Safeguards Framework, which has been mentioned, which will be underscored, that's coming up next, is something we're very, very proud to support. Be honored to talk to you a little bit more, but I think I'm out of time.
Okay. Before I close off this first mini panel, I wanted to invite, there's a comment from the floor. It's the pleasure to invite Gwen Ngwenwa, if I pronounced that correctly, the Vice President of Public Policy for MasterCard. Gwen, are you here? And I wanted to just give you a chance to say a brief word. No. Okay, well, because they also hosted the great nightcap, or the reception last night, I thought it was a chance to also recognize that. But anyhow, okay, well, in that regards, let's invite the panel off the stage and invite Raja for you to come up to introduce the second part of the session.
Thank you all. When ITU and UNDP proposed this session, we didn't expect so many people, so we're very, very grateful that so many of you turned up over here to hear about what happened in G20, hear from South Africa, hear from all the participants. This segment of the panel is very, very exciting. We are very excited. I think January of this year, Alex, and we as knowledge partners were discussing with the South African presidency that after Cairo, after seeing what happened in the Global DPI Summit, we feel that there needs to be more knowledge sharing between the member states, between the countries, and we asked the South Africa presidency if they would allow us and work very closely with us for setting up an open call for DPI innovation. It was called DPI Innovation Accelerator. The point was that bringing DPI innovations from across the world, we could accelerate your DPI innovations in your country. With that, a couple of us came together. Thank you, DCDT, for giving us this opportunity so that everybody could learn with us. Very grateful, Jim and DG, for that. ITU for being a great partner and working with UNDP and African Union and Research ICT Africa. I'm also going to give a shout out to Dial. They've also been behind the scenes working and helping us with this open call. So the submission window started in March and went all the way till the Digital Economy Working Group, and the final meeting was concluded earlier last month. It was strategically aligned with the G20 so that there were different windows where countries could submit. We received about 93 submissions from a very diverse set of stakeholders. If you could bring up the slide, Carolina. We had 93 submissions, out of which 35 were from government, 4 from institutional players, and about 57 from private sector. These were all enablers of DPI and how they could help countries. We are compiling all of these and we are getting them out shortly on the G20 website. How did we do the selection? They were selected basis on whether they were DPI, they were accelerating the DPI core principles of the G20 presidency. One was the public value, you heard David speak about it, where governments and the enablers able to talk about how they help in the public value. Did they have safeguards built into them already? Did they have interoperability from an open standards perspective? And did they support integrated governance? These were some of the ways in which we looked at these submissions. Now, to share with us some of these facets and to say what works, what doesn't work, we're joined by 3 progress exemplars. I call them progress exemplars because DPI is always a work in progress. You're continuing to progress with it. So we have from Brazil, Guilherme Almeida. He's the DPI Program Director at Ministry of Management and Innovation in Public Services. Guy, please join us on stage. To share with us the India story, we are joined by Amod Kumar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MeitY. Thank you. And from Europe, sharing the story on Italy, we are joined by Massimiliano Gambardella, Head of Relations with Universities and Research Institutions, Pagopa SPA. Thank you for joining us today. Hello. All right. I'll start from the far left and we will work our way through. Guy, we met like
14 months ago.
14 months ago, yes. It was a G20 DPI where you brought the past, that time current, and the future, which was South Africa. And then you spoke about this need for an accelerator where there can be knowledge sharing. And Brazil had put a lot of entries into it, gov.br and Cadastral Ambiental Rural. 2 of your DPI has been shared. Talk to us about the safeguards, the interoperability which has been built into it. And please do talk about the public value and your future plans.
Okay. All of that in 3 minutes, right?
You can take 3 minutes.
Okay, now just for the sake of clarity, I'm not Miriam Chavez, but we are interoperable. So we work in a joint manner, and we share responsibilities, knowledge, and positions and activities. Well, you have quite well mentioned that 14 months ago we were together in Brazil, India, South Africa, specialists, advisors, discussing how could we not only take the baton from India, but also pass the baton to South Africa. To some extent, it worked, right? So we're here discussing because there's a continuing conversation around how can we make technology relevant for societal transformation with safeguards. And in the context of Brazil, going to your question, I think we are embedding several aspects of safeguards in our conversations. And when we talk about safeguards, we talk about inclusion, we talk about governance, we talk also about equity, about technical aspects of making information secure. So going on that, we are strongly implementing sovereign cloud approaches and PKI infrastructure so that we can make sure information is secure, not only for data protection, but also for data security. We also are integrating systems. You know, for instance, we just mentioned the Rural Environmental Registry. Now it's using the gov.br login authentication system. So making sure that we are really using building blocks we have and that they're good, safe, and inclusive is okay. Another challenge we have is the challenge of reaching out to people and making sure people are able to use systems and have assistance for that. In the case of the rural registry, we can count on extension services, so people go in the field and help people to access. But we do strong work on user experience, trying to streamline systems, check where people are not responding or functioning, and then reorganizing systems. But also, we intend to help people where they are, so bringing this to a more present approach. And finally, for governance, we do have some inclusive governance levels at different aspects in different DPIs. With Rural Environmental Registry, we have a network of states working together. For the broader digital policy, we have a national strategy which has governance and is built upon. But there's, you just mentioned, and I want to close my intervention with this, it's a continuing work in progress. So it's always a matter of evolution and gaining maturity and evolving and listening and adapting and keeping things going. Provided that, one, we aim and we do create public value, and two, we'll listen and cater to people to understand what needs to be done and what are the needs and how can we better solve people's problems.
Thank you. We also know that you have created a listening forum with the civil society so that you're able to listen more carefully to their problems and how do we evolve. No, you don't. Yes. I'm not giving you time to react to that. But I do want people to go and engage with Miriam Chavis and Guy. They're both interoperable. Amod, over to you. Aadhaar has been a story that the world has heard, but you extended it with Aadhaar app. So delve a little bit into the cost of building something like this, the benefit, and how it derives or delivers public value.
Thank you. So I would not limit myself to Aadhaar app because there are so many things which have happened beyond Aadhaar. So, but first to answer what you have asked. So we created digital identity. We started creating it in around 2010. And so far, we have covered the whole country. All the adult population is covered, and there is almost universal coverage. We spent about $2 billion in doing that. And already the benefits we have got are to the tune of $50 billion. That are the tangible benefits. We are not counting the intangibles, and these benefits come by way of DBT or plugging the leakages in the government scheme. So that's one foundational DPI. But apart from Aadhaar, there have been many DPIs which have been rolled out, like UPI, DigiLocker, DigiYatra, One Nation, One Ration Card, Apar ID, AgriStack, Diksha. There are so many. and in each of them, some hundreds of millions of users are there. So I would just share within 2-3 minutes the lessons which we have learned as we have gone along, which can be very useful for all of us. One, carrots work, sticks don't work. So we did not make any of these mandatory when we were doing it. We showed the citizens the value of it, and then they voluntarily enrolled for whatever DPIs we were rolling out. So that was the biggest lesson, because normally in the government we think, let's make a law, let's do this, let's make it mandatory, or we'll not give something if it is not there. No, we said you'll get it in a better way, and that's why there was more trust. Second lesson we learned was privacy by design, security by design. And in case you have to choose, so you have to have transparency as well as privacy, but if you have to choose, go with transparency, because rich like privacy, poor like transparency. Third is the very important, and I would like to thank the people who are here from different countries. We learned a lot from Global South, whether it is African countries or whether it is South American countries. Our teams visited those countries and we learned from them. And so it's a collaborative learning that is very important. Minimal data principle, involvement of private sector, breaking the monopoly of the government using these foundational pillars of DPI, which are identity, payment, and data exchange. And we need to have very clear interoperability and open standards if we want to succeed. And then, once we have these foundational DPIs, 3 foundational DPIs in place, then let everybody, including the private sector, including the local governments, build and operate and sell and use their own DPIs. So I think this is what I would like to share from India's perspective.
Thank you. Transparency for the poor. That is what I'm going to take away from that. Massimiliano, over to you. I think App.io is Italy's digital platform which links from the identity to the payments. Talk to us and how it is changing lives of people.
Okay, App.io, io in Italian, io, it means me.
Ah, okay.
Okay, and what we do, I know that each of us have an experience with public administration, you know, like I used to say, like a servant. Okay. We go to different administration, collect different data, to go to another administration, to have rights, okay? Or sometimes I will be unreachable from an administrator because I have to pay something I didn't know. Actually, it happens to me in the past. And you pay an amendment and say, well, how is possible? So with IO, me, yeah. We change this paradigm. And to me, it's too short, so I try to do you some suggestion. Do you imagine this Carson labyrinth?
Okay.
In Italy, we just changed. We have 23,000 different administration with I don't know how many different services, with different names, with different databases and whatever. Now we change. Now we have an app, and for an administration have to say you something because we have a right. They just notify you, oh, you have this kind of right. You push, and if you have to pay, an example for the school, it's also integrated, it's interoperable with our platform, platform of payment, the send, so the post office for legal notification, data lake, and whatever. And so now we are the not servant, okay? It's like the state that came to me without asking me again my data. Why I should give you again my data, my birth date, who I am, my fiscal code, just once. It's a European principle of once only. Just to end, because I have just 1 minute now. How to do it? we create with the different local administration a sort of common grammar. We do not impose nothing. We co-develop together in an open source way, of course, and in a multidisciplinary way. So we are like the colleagues. Privacy by design, because just to give you an example, now here we are me and my colleague from privacy. I am a public affair. Why? Because we should have two different aspects. And I will end with another little one, short one, just to give you the power of multidisciplinarity. We are a tech company from States, and we have a lot of tech people. You know, they are strange animals, tech people. And the word transparency, an example, for my colleague of privacy, it means, so for me, of course, I'm an economist, it means that you have to put all the data, all the stuff, so you'll be transparent, so you should know everything about it and give to the others.
Okay.
For a designer, it means exactly the opposite. For a designer, transparency is like the arch of the mouse that moves. So without, you see, it's transparent. So in a firm, in an enterprise, in a project, you should be multidisciplinary, because if not, you cannot be designer by design, transparent by design, open by design, privacy by design, compliance by design. So I will say that this is the secret.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I do agree with you. The government has now become the servant of the Italian people. So thanks for making that shift. Thank you. I think there are very, very rich takeaways from this panel. And I will request all of you and also all the countries who continue to support to keep sharing these examples, to keep sharing this on a regular basis on what's changing, what's happening in your countries. So thank you so much for joining us on this panel. And to share with us his closing thoughts and remarks on the G20 presidency, I would like to request Jim Patterson, the head of multilateral affairs from South Africa's DCDT. So Jim, can we keep this going? I think there's richness in these insights.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to begin by thanking everybody, the DG, the panelists, Alex and Raja. What I can safely say is that you've heard from a very small amount of people who've been involved in all of the work we were doing in the G20, but this is really a very, very excellent panel that we've had today. And these are the key drivers of some of the key issues that we've been trying to address during the year. So I would just like to commend the organizers for this. We've heard today already about the digital public value for digital public infrastructure. I think this approach was something that's terribly useful in terms of, as Professor Eves explained, trying to look at DPI not from the vantage point of a big value, single use case of an infrastructure investment, but rather looking at the many distributed, diverse benefits that can arise from digital infrastructure. So this is a very useful guide. I think we're using it in South Africa, and it's going to be available. We're going to publish it so that everybody can access it and use that going forward if they so desire. Also equally valuable was the integrated governance framework, as Professor Gould explained. The different aspects of governance around DPI are distributed in many different fields and across different government entities. They need to be brought together into a framework that will be useful and practical, that will help you realize the benefits of DPI from that public value vantage point. So it needs to be people-centric, rights-based, and we need to try and make sure that through DPI we make the economy more participatory and inclusive and equitable. So I think these are some of the big benefits that we had from the work that we did in the G20, and I really want to thank the colleagues for bringing so much effort and energy into that task. I'd also like to thank the Gates Foundation and Dion for all of their work. They've been actually with us in the background from day one, because they don't just work to support what we did in the G20. They held a very useful kind of working dinner where we were looking at AI and DPI together, and what would be the future of DPI using AI solutions. But also they've been working with our presidency and the digital services unit in the presidency in South Africa, where we've been developing a DPI roadmap, which is something which was also commended and shared in the G20 working group. So I would also like to thank Gates for that valuable contribution. And lastly, I just want to mention then, of course, that going forward, apart from publishing those particular areas of work and sharing those with everybody, we are also working with UNDP and ITU and various others, I would guess particularly with India and Brazil as the preceding presidencies who are quite advanced in the area of DPI. We'll be working with them to look at how we're going to share all the work we did in collating different examples of DPI from around the world. As you are more than well aware, there's so many examples already, as you've seen in this summit of excellence in terms of producing different solutions and approaches around DPI. But we have on the panel here today 3 really leading examples. So we'll be working to see how we can bring forward that curation of excellence so that it can be shared on an ongoing basis. So we'll be engaging with UNDP, ITU, and Brazil, and India, and others to make sure that we can make this kind of platform available so that people can always reference good leading examples of DPI to help them think about their own situations and challenges and potential solutions going forward. So thank you very much to the organizers, much appreciated, and I hope everybody found it as beneficial as I did. Thank you. And Alex, please.
So I have the pleasure to close the session, and for ITU, I know for me it's a great relief because I think this marks the end of our assignment. But I actually want to take the moment here to thank all of our knowledge partners who've been working with us on this priority. So of course, besides ITU and UNDP, Research ICT Africa, UCL Cambridge, DIAL, the AU, and Gates Foundation. A big warm thanks for them and all the support, and the proverb about it takes a village to raise a child. We birthed a couple things, and so that really, I think, applies. A final thanks, though, is to, of course, the DCTT, the government of South Africa. The themes of inclusion and equity really permeated through all of the work of the Digital Economy Working Group, I would say, and really were the North Star for the work that the knowledge partners could mobilize around. And I think you see that in the products that have come out. And I really hope it has laid a foundation for many of you as you take your work forward to remember some of the themes and concepts that came out of the work. So that is really, I think, our hope on behalf of the knowledge partners. And in that regard, then, I want to recognize, and I think you know the key colleagues involved from the DCTT, of course, under the leadership overall of Minister Solly Malatsi, but DG Nankobela Jordan, who spoke earlier, Jim Patterson, who was the ringmaster for all of the G20 Digital Economy Working Group work across the entire areas, but also on this particular priority, Jeanette Morwani, who's the chief director in the ministry who oversees the work of the DPI, and also Traveen Rabindranath, who I know is here as well, and he's been, of course, a key colleague who's been working and supporting that. So the leadership of the DCTT, I just want to recognize that, and for these themes that have really been driving us forward. So if I can ask everyone to give everyone a round of applause, I'd appreciate that. So I think DGR assignment is complete. This is really the last item that was on our G20 work plan. I know there's more to do with you, but thank you very much. And with that, we will end the session and invite you for the coffee break. But I would like to have a family photo. All the knowledge partners, if you're in the room, and of course our colleagues from DCTT, please join up front and we'll do a photo for that. Thank you very much.